How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me. I'm excited to talk to you on our topic, disability rights in a pandemic. So I wondered if you could introduce yourself first. Do you mind?
Yeah, my name's Ryan McGraw. I'm part of the accessible yoga movement as an ambassador and a yoga teacher. I am also the health and home and community based at Access Living. Access Living is a center for independent living in Chicago.
Great, thank you. I think we're live. It looks a little funny on Facebook. Hopefully it's working okay. And I know it looks like you're having some issues with your video, but you're still there, right?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
It
Um,
looks normal to me.
Okay, that's fine. So I wonder, we talked about maybe you would lead us through a centering practice. Do you want to do that?
Sure, just sit back into your chair, feel your feet rooted on the ground, feel the energy coming up your legs, and feel your sit bones on the chair, rooting down through your sit bones, your side ribs, and allow your neck to relax as you close your eyes. And roll your shoulders down and back. Begin to tune into the breath, the natural flow of the inhales and exhale. Just the the breath is like wind to the body. It fuels the body. So just see this fuel as a light going up and down not only the front body but the back body, from the low belly to the upper chest, the natural inhale and exhale. Remembering to relax their face. All tension is gone throughout the body. and then just gently begin to wiggle the fingers and the toes, bring life back to the body, and open the eyes.
Thanks, Ryan. That was awesome.
No problem.
That reminded me a little bit of Matthew Sanford. It made me think back to when I think when I first met you. Was it in a training when he came to Santa Barbara for? Was that our first accessible
Yeah,
yoga
the
conference?
first accessible yoga conference. Yes.
Yeah. I think that was
That,
2015, right?
yeah, 2015. That was actually the first time I met Matthew too. So yes,
Yeah, that was great. That was a great
it
moment.
was great. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being here with me today. These conversations have been fun for me because I just get to talk to people who I like and hear what they have to say, and especially people who are doing amazing work like you. So, can you tell us more about your work? Actually, I think that's connected to the topic. The work that you're doing for your job.
Yeah. So what I do for my work is I run a group called the Task Force for Attendance Services. And our primarily focus is to um allow people with disabilities to live in the community and ensure they have the services they need to do that.
Mhm.
Um, and really looking at and really from a policy perspective. So we look at both national and state policies. Um, we look at issues like barriers from getting like acquiring a wheelchair, costs of prescription drugs, um, how long it takes to hire a PA, but now my advocacy work has shifted, or I should say our advocacy work,
Yeah.
because primarily everyone at Access Living is focused now on COVID-19 advocacy.
Yeah. So, how has that changed your work? I mean, how is that? What are you doing in that way?
Well, where we have one of the focuses on looking at COVID in congregate settings like nursing homes. A
Mhm.
quarter of the deaths in Illinois are in nursing home settings. So we have heard reports that there are not enough PPE in personal protective equipment in
Mhm.
nursing homes. Staff just don't have that to stop the spread. Um, people don't. I mean, residents are trapped in there, no visitors are allowed in and out. So, making sure they have that access to communication that most people have, like we are communicating over Facebook right now. What if you didn't have a smartphone? Um, and it's just ensuring that the guidelines set out for the nursing homes by the Departments of Public Health, by the CDC, by the Centers for Medicaid Services are followed to prevent the spread of COVID in those nursing homes because it's brutal. In Washington at the Kirkland Center, um, it's a life center in Kirkland, Washington. I believe there's 50 deaths. So those procedures need to be followed to prevent the spread of COVID. So the
Right.
work we're doing right now is meeting with those stakeholders, meeting with the policy, meeting with the heads of the state departments, and Access Living is writing a letter to the Department of Public Health
Mm.
um, about that.
So
So,
it seems like there's two different things there. There's like the fact that people are basically trapped in nursing homes and don't have access to communication. We don't really know what's going on in there because no one can go in or out. And also then it's unclear if procedures are in place that are keeping them safe. Because partially it's because there's not enough equipment for the for the providers, right? For the healthcare providers and assistants in those places. Seems like a mess. And I think it's so important because, like you said, it does seem like the majority of deaths happening right now are in nursing homes and prisons, places like that, where people are basically, living together in close quarters and don't really have anywhere else to go, right?
yeah. And another population is the homeless population. But looking at nursing homes, it's just like guidelines are in place. They have been put up by IDPH and CMS and CDC, but are they really being followed? Do the
Yeah.
nursing homes actually have a isolation room where they can isolate people with COVID? I mean, we have a task force member is in a nursing home. She said that the staff doesn't have personal protective equipment.
Hmm.
They they there was one case in her nursing home, and they put the three people with who interacted with that guy the most in the same room.
Hmm.
Is that intelligent? I don't think so. And she said that the thermometers are broken. So there's no way to tell if residents have temps. It's just really a heartbreaking situation. I mean, conditions aren't good in nursing homes, regardless, in the majority of nursing homes.
You said they're not good? They're not good?
No, not good.
Yeah. I mean, it also just shows how this virus, how the virus kind of is exaggerating the problems that existed before. You know, it's like people that were already vulnerable are more vulnerable to this. And it makes it extra frustrating that the government hasn't stepped up to do more, because it's those people who end up getting sick and dying because they're vulnerable in the first place. They don't, like you said, they're already, the care is already questionable, sounds like, and there's not enough equipment. Thermometers aren't working. I mean, it's unbelievable that, you know, and I think it seems like there's just this kind of ignorance maybe of what's going on. You know, I think part of it is that everyone's struggling with this in their own way, right? All of us are having to change our life and our lifestyle. A lot of yoga teachers are out of work, especially, I know, but I think it's hard to keep aware of, you know, even if you have a home and if you're relatively comfortable, you're lucky, because those people who are living in communities like that are really susceptible.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for doing that, for your work.
No problem. I mean, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm one of the ones that can work remotely. And I only hope my work is the work that we are doing is helping. So
it kind of reminds me of
there was one thing I wanted to say. The federal government has taken steps to deregulate nursing homes. So basically saying you won't be held accountable.
Wow.
Which I don't want to get into the federal government because it makes my blood boil.
Yeah.
But that's just ridiculous.
Right. A lack of regulation means that there'll be less security and safety for people living in those places, right?
Yeah.
These kind of systems, I think, it shows where purely capitalist system doesn't work, you know, where it really fails people who are vulnerable in any way. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, but it makes me think about disability rights in general. Like this, I know this is work you've been doing for a long time. In a way, it's not new. Like I said, I think the pandemic is just highlighting what was already going on. Personally, it reminds me a lot of the AIDS epidemic, which I lived through, you know, as a gay man living through the 80s and all those times as an activist. So much of the problems that were occurring had to do with homophobia and a lack of care for people who seemed outside of traditional culture, whatever you want to call it. You know, like I think what was so frustrating in those days, early days of AIDS especially, was just that the federal government didn't do anything, didn't seem to care, because it was mostly gay men that were dying. People even thought it was karma, like, oh, that's your karma for being promiscuous, so you get AIDS and die. There was so much hatred, and I just feel like that is what inspired me to create accessible yoga, because I originally started working with teaching yoga to my community with HIV and AIDS back then, back in the 90s. And, I feel like it's happening again, that once again, this virus is highlighting these problems that are already there, the way that people with disabilities are seen as less than or something, right?
Yeah. And that really highlights another thing that Access Living did, was to put out protocols for medical rationing. So, meaning that we actually wrote a letter to the
Mm.
state basically saying that, like, you shouldn't, doctors shouldn't discriminate against people with disabilities
Right,
from getting ventilators.
right.
Why you have to do that is because discrimination by doctors, although it may be convert, it may not be overt, it's still there in basic, but you we saw in other states like Tennessee that um there was actually policy against like people with severe developmental disabilities or MS
Mm.
that like it was a hierarchy. So
I heard.
really basically saying that it needs to be based on the ability to survive, not on anything else.
Yeah, it's really
So
horrific.
it's
Yeah.
in really looking at that and saying that this is federal law that you can't discriminate against
Yeah.
us. Um,
Yeah, that hierarchy
in
is scary. It's
yeah,
scary.
luckily in Illinois, only 40%, 40% of ventilators are being used for COVID patients, but
That's good.
we don't know what's around the corner with this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like part of what's around the corner, and I hate to predict the future, but if it's anything like AIDS, what happened eventually is that kind of mainstream society moved on and like left people who were vulnerable to fend for themselves. And
Yeah.
I'm just afraid that we're seeing that a little bit with everyone going this whole like movement to go back to work. It feels very selfish to me. I mean, I know people need work, but I think you're putting vulnerable people at risk by going back to work too soon and opening things up. So there's a
Will
comment.
you?
Go ahead. I was going to read your comment from Tressa. She said, I can't imagine how it's affecting them emotionally, both the people living in these facilities and the staff. It is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and that's another area, the staff. I mean, it's not even just the people, it's residents of the nursing home, it's the staff. I just heard an interview yesterday that in the nursing home they were down to 25% staff,
Oh, wow.
and I'm sure that's not just a single occurrence.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's scary. You wonder if people are really being neglected in those places with such a lack of staff. Um, I know my uncle is living in a nursing home in LA, and really he's been isolated because one of the providers there, one of the staff, tested positive. So it's such a challenge for these communities. I'm
yeah.
wondering, Ryan, if there's anything we can do. I mean, do you feel like advocacy, or what do you suggest?
Um, it's with the nursing home advocacy, I can say you can always reach out to your state and federal representative. Right now, I feel the state reps would do more, but I'm only in one state.
Mhm.
Um, but and it's so tough right now because there's so many things on government officials' plate,
Yeah.
and the vast major all of these facilities are private. Like
Mm.
in Illinois, they have said like if COVID becomes a problem in nursing homes, we will send in a strike team.
Oh my God.
No, we don't need action after COVID occurs.
No.
We need to make sure these policies are followed beforehand to, but how do you do that
Mhm.
when there's hundreds of nursing homes
Yeah.
in the city of Chicago?
Wow.
It's like, I don't know the exact number, but it's
So you, so
um
you, so people could reach out to their representatives. I mean, that's really all we can do. Is that what you're saying?
I would say so. I mean, it's really a tough question because I mean, outside of making, well, I don't even want to say making PPE because it for a facility like that, it needs to be effective.
Right.
Um,
Well, I think
but
uh,
another real way you in not advocacy, but it's a real way you could help. Um, con- consumers of home services. So, like, this is where a personal assistant would come into the home and help the person with the disability
mhm.
get out of bed with their daily living needs. Some of those providers are just as nervous and scared um and they put themselves at risk, the person with the disability is at risk, but they don't have access to PPE.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I think one of the ways people can be of help is if they have access, if they can make it, if they have a car offer to join a mutual aid group and
Right.
see if they can bring groceries to a person.
Uh-huh.
Um, Groceries are uh, people with disabilities are figuring out how to get groceries, how they can use food stamps
Yeah.
to get groceries till. Honestly, groceries are complicated for us all. I had a grocery order that was supposed to come at 9 a.m. Um,
Yeah.
they told us that they're backed up, and so we don't even know if we're gonna get it.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, it's more complicated. But I like that.
Luckily, I
That was a good idea. Mutual aid groups, and then reaching out to people who might need support with groceries or other essential supplies. We
yeah.
could do that. And what about yoga? I mean, anything for the yoga community that you think we could be aware of right now? Or
Well, I'm. You mean like with offering classes?
yeah, like right? Could we be? Is that helpful? Do you think? I mean, one thing I think about is just that yoga teachers need to get better training around ableism in general, and that there's like a larger issue here, which is that the context that these problems happen in is because there's a real misunderstanding, um, and well, actually more than misunderstanding, just prejudice against people with disabilities. So I feel like we need to, like our community, the accessible yoga community, can offer some service just in helping to educate people around that, around equity in general.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's opening up the yoga board and making yoga accessible will allow people to
Mhm.
see that in other aspects of life that they need to be accessible and
Yeah,
um it lessens prejudice and stereotypes.
right. I saw,
Um
I saw a post this morning on our Facebook group. Can I read it to you? I thought it was so beautiful and
sure.
pertinent to our discussion. It was from Karen O'Donnell Clark, who she teaches yoga for people with MS. Um, it's a quote from Susan Wendell. It says, "Not only do physically disabled people have experiences which are not available to the able-bodied, they are in a better position to transcend cultural mythologies about the body because they cannot do things that able-bodied feel they must do in order to be happy, quote, normal and sane. If disabled people were truly heard, an explosion of knowledge of the human body and psyche would take place."
Yeah, that goes back to the social model, the medical model,
Oh
the
yeah, tell us about that. I
disability.
love when you teach about that, Ryan.
The idea of the medical matter being that there is something wrong with people with disabilities and that there is a limitation of a person, and that needs to be cured, to the social matter of disability, that we all have differences. Every person in life have differences, and society just needs to adjust to us. And society opens up the barriers. If yoga relating it back to yoga, if studios had zero steps entries, if they had accessible bathroom, if the studio was accessible, if the teacher had training in accessible yoga, um, they could easily take a class.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. I remember you gave a workshop at our accessible yoga conference in St. Louis. Was that a year ago? Seems, I think it was
yeah,
about a
a
year.
year ago.
Yeah, and you talked about that a lot, and I think it's such an important message. You know, for yoga, the yoga community in general needs to hear that, and yoga teachers to understand the way that to understand the way that ableism works. And like you said, that medical model is so pervasive in within yoga teaching. You know, that even I think a lot of people who consider themselves accessible yoga teachers still bring that frame of mind when they're teaching students who have disabilities, right? That even though we think we're adapting the practice, we think we're going to fix or heal someone.
Yeah, it's like that people with disabilities take yoga for the same reasons as everyone else. They, if, hey, if it improves my spasticity, so be it. And that's a good benefit of yoga. But I go to yoga for the same reasons as everyone else. Um, but
Right.
there is a definite place for yoga therapy, and I am the yoga therapists are just as valuable as anyone.
Right.
So I do not want to give a negative connotation to yoga therapists either.
Yeah.
But if um if you are coming to a regular yoga class, do not treat a student like they are coming to a yoga therapy session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
think there you go. That's the difference. I mean, I agree. I'm a yoga therapist, and sometimes um, there is a need when a student wants something in particular, like wanting support with spasticity or wanting support with balance or wanting to work on some particular thing. That's where yoga therapy can come in, and yoga therapy offers kind of that ongoing support and hopefully a holistic view of the person, you know, looking not just at the body but at everything. But it's not that not everyone with a disability who comes to yoga is coming for yoga therapy, and I think that's great. That's why actually, you know, my training, I used to train yoga therapists for many years, and then I shifted and I created an accessible yoga training, which is quite short. It's 30 hours. For that very reason, actually, because I wanted to work with yoga teachers instead of yoga therapists, because I felt like yoga therapists are already mostly getting good training. It's yoga teachers, I feel like, who often don't have that understanding of how to work with all different bodies in a way that's, that's respectful. And not only that, that's empowering, because I think that's what yoga really is about. Not necessarily curing someone, but just empowering them. So your video's gone away, but I think we can still hear you. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Someone's comment, Jessica says, private sector Washington State company, surgical anesthesia that wants their guidelines shared as needed, gavialabs.com. I guess I don't really know what that means, but maybe you can tell us more about that. Tressa, what are you saying? Tressa's saying not all programs are created equal. Oh, that's probably true of yoga therapy, right? And yoga teacher training. Some are better than others.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, so your video is gone, but I can still hear you. So I'm just curious, anything else you want to share with us, Ryan? Any other? Oh, there you are. You're back.
Just I'm teaching a seated chair yoga class on every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Time until this COVID time ends.
Okay, that's great.
They stay at home, so that's on Zoom. So if anyone wants to join and needs the link, I can share the event page to accessible with the accessible yoga community.
Yeah, maybe you could put it on the in the comments for this video. This video will stay on the page, and then we're actually moving all these videos to YouTube where they get captioned, and they're there for anyone who wants to watch them later. So you could add this as a comment. You could add the link as a comment. Can you do that as a comment here to the video later?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Yes. Okay. And Jessica was saying that she has a link for medical stuff for everyone's safety. Yeah, I think we all need more. We need to be well informed. We need to know about these issues. I really appreciate your time, Ryan, and telling us about the work you're doing and how you're advocating for people with disabilities during the pandemic. It seems extra important right now that we speak up and just do what we can. So it's amazing what you are doing.
Thank you very much, Jivana.
Yeah, should we end there?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my work and what I'm doing, and thank you to all that are watching.
Yeah, and I hope your groceries come today.
We are lucky that we have a convenience store downstairs.
Okay, so you won't starve.
No, we won't starve.
Okay, good. All right, well, take care, Ryan. So great to see you.
Thank you so much, Jivana.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. That's your wife, Ellie. Okay, bye.